Hey everyone, meet Kevin here with another update for you on the next round of stimulus checks, and of course the next stimulus package. Yesterday we heard Senator John Thune tell us that June was going to be a busy week. And I think a lot of us sort of facepalmed when we heard that, because it's like, seriously dude, we already know you guys basically only work 40 hours a month. You don't have to rub it in, because it already makes us upset enough. Now, the Wall Street Journal ran a piece this morning as well that was really interesting about the next round of stimulus. You might remember last week, I kind of challenged the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, and some other people in Congress, because we had people in Congress and the Treasury Secretary saying, you know, only half of the last stimulus package has been allocated. Let's wait and see. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Only half the money has been allocated. It's all already divvied up. Like, the SBA is out of money. The people aren't getting more stimulus checks. What are you talking about, basically? Well, I called BS because when I looked at it closely, I could see it was BS. Well, the Wall Street Journal called BS today. The Wall Street Journal officially put a nail in this coffin that only half of the money has been spent. An economist who served under Obama, and I know that's under Obama, but remember the Wall Street Journal leans a little bit on the right, so maybe we've got a little balancing factor here. But this economist broke down the package, and he said that, quote, virtually everything is committed, and a great deal of that has gone out of the door already. And that kind of reiterates what I had said last week, where, look, the Federal Reserve, the money that was put aside for the Main Street lending program, that program hadn't opened up yet. But there was already like $450 billion put aside for that. So, it was just such a manipulation that the Treasury Department and some people in Congress were using to kind of trick us, which I don't like being tricked, and that's why I like providing this information. So we know the money's basically allocated. I'll link the entire Wall Street Journal article down below. But in that same article, they also say, look, direct cash assistance has the biggest impact on people because it fills the void of economic activity created by social distancing. That's a paraphrase of one of their quotes. A really good article. So they're saying, look, the money's spent, and something that helps a lot are stimulus checks. More stimulus is good. But I wanted to clear that up, so that way if you hear that argument that, well, only half has been spent and that's why they're waiting, it's a baloney argument. Check out that Wall Street Journal article or my video from last week. By the way, when I mentioned the Main Street lending program a few months ago, I actually read the entire program with the Federal Reserve. I made 2 or 3 videos on it, kind of pointing out like, hey, these stocks are going to win big if the Main Street lending program happens. Well, the Main Street lending program opened up last week, and take a look at some of the top winners in the marketplace today. At the very top, winning on the reopening side, are companies like Dave & Buster's and Simon Property Group, which Dave & Buster's was one of the companies that I not only invested in, but also said was going to benefit massively from the Main Street lending program because they perfectly fit the criteria. They're up 23% today. But unfortunately, I was a little heavier on Simon Property Group. Simon Property Group only up 14% today. Okay, in all seriousness, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but what I do want you to be aware of is when the Federal Reserve announces programs that are going to help certain businesses, it's a good idea to kind of look at those programs and go, what would benefit when these programs actually go through? Which, by the way, that was the Webull app, which if you download that and deposit $100, you get 2 completely free stocks. It's a pretty cool app. I use it every single day. So download Webull, deposit $100, get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400, and of course, get your life insurance in the link down below. Now, let's hit Black Lives Matters and more about the stimulus check. So here's the thing. I'm gonna start with a bad statistic here, and then we'll circle back to kind of what this means. So 20% of people in Minneapolis are black. 60% are white. So way more white people, right? Like 3 times as many white people. Well, since 2015, the Minneapolis Police Department has documented the use of force 11,500 times. Out of those 11,500 use of force incidents, over 58% were against black individuals, and only 24% were against white individuals. So you have 1/3 as many blacks in the city, yet 3 times the use of force against blacks. That's not a very good stat. And now you might hate the organization that reported this, and that's fine, but take the stat for what it is. I just want to give credit here. And this is why I started with the Wall Street Journal. I always try to balance it out, okay? But every time I mention this company, I get hate in the comments. So I'm just clearing it up here. Thank you, New York Times, for that stat. Yes, I know. They'd lean more left. I got it. I got it. Right. But what we really ought to do is what CNBC quoted and said, focus on the cause. They quoted Kate Spade, CEO, who had multiple of their stores vandalized and windows broken. And the Kate Spade CEO said, look, focus on the cause. What's the cause? And we've been talking about the cause over the last few days on my channel relentlessly. Almost every single video I've been reiterating, hey, look, it's not because blacks are more violent than whites. Remember, the Justice Department compared crime between blacks and whites in poverty, and the crime rate was equal crime between blacks and whites. The problem was poverty. If you were in poverty, you were 2.5 times as likely to be the victim of violent crime. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So the solution is eliminating poverty. Stimulus checks can do that. What Kamala Harris proposes, the $2,000 per month stimulus checks, or Bernie Sanders' $2,000 per month, or Mark Cuban's $1,000 every 2 weeks, which is $2,000 per month. All of these proposals would solve that. The Yang Gang, $1,000 per month as a freedom dividend forever, not even a stimulus check, just a freedom dividend forever. That would solve poverty. We could instantaneously, as a country, eliminate poverty. Think about that for a moment. And that's exactly why I'm running a fundraiser for the NAACP. Every 20 bucks helps, so consider that. Like, I would rather you check out the fundraiser than look at my programs in the link below on learning how to invest and all that. They need the help right now. Look, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, they donated to them as well. I started the donations off with $1,000. I'm going to be donating more as well as we get closer to our goal, so stay tuned. The last fundraiser we did, we raised over $40,000 for hungry children, and I hope to raise a substantial amount here for the NAACP as well. Now, let's talk about the $1,200 stimulus checks. We've got a little bit of issues with Republicans, but this is not a surprise. Senator James Lankford was a Republican, and he mentioned, look, the first round of stimulus happened because we went into lockdown, and now the economy is reopening and things are different. He kind of put cold water on the stimulus check idea. Mitt Romney says the next round of stimulus checks are probably unlikely, and we know that Mitch McConnell says, hey, the odds of a monthly stimulus check not happening. Okay, so we know that's what some Republicans are thinking right now. But, you know, look, the $1,200 stimulus checks, they might be down, but they're not out. And remember, we don't need every single Republican on board. We need 51 total senators to vote for this next bill. We know Donald Trump's not opposed to additional stimulus checks, and we know there are 47 Democrats and 2 independents in the Senate. So, you know, you've kind of got 49 versus 51 here. But Republicans do control the floor. So I think stimulus checks, at least the next $1,200 round, again, they're down, but they're not out. I'm still putting the likelihood of that around 50%. And I know last week a lot of us were really upset with the fact that, wait a minute, why are Democrat senators now kind of saying that maybe no to another stimulus check? Keep in mind, the leader for the Democrats in the Senate is Charles Schumer, and he is gung-ho for another round of stimulus check. He is rallying for another stimulus check, and so is Nancy Pelosi. So just because we hear some Republicans saying no and throwing cold water on it, that's just negotiating posture right now. You know, at the very least, you have the leader of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and you've got the leader of the Senate, well, the minority leader in the Senate, Charles Schumer, rallying for the next stimulus check. Of course, Schumer is also working on several law enforcement bills as well, which Mitch McConnell is not so keen on taking up right now, which it's kind of like, well, Mr. McConnell, what are you taking up right now? But anyway, Charles Schumer also introduced a resolution to condemn Trump's use of force against those peaceful protesters we saw outside the church in D.C. Now, there is a dispute on whether or not the protesters were actually peaceful. Not trying to take sides, so I'm trying to make sure you know both sides here. But the fact is, Charles Schumer did issue a resolution to condemn that in the Senate, and Mitch McConnell prevented a vote on that. So remember, he's the Democrat leader. Now, we did also have an update from Republican Lindsey Graham. He gave us an interesting POV today, which was actually very motivating in my opinion. And he's a very vocal senator. He hates China. He wants to punish China. Donald Trump is getting ready to ban Chinese from being able to fly into America because we can't fly into China. It's tit for tat, the trade war, it's a black cloud, it's a mess. But anyway, he said something very interesting that made me feel like, okay, he's actually kind of got some reality going on. He says, look, he's not enthused by another round of stimulus checks, but he says he does believe in helping people especially people on Social Security because the price of food has gone up. So maybe he'd be open to that next round of stimulus checks because that would very easily help people on Social Security and other people. So very interesting updates today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. Check out my links down below, 2 free stocks with Webull, life insurance, and my programs. I really appreciate all of you folks, and we will see you soon.